6 years ago, she had run away from home. She would find a way to make something of her life. She was determined to make it happen and prove that even she, someone with no money or power, could have an important place in the world. No matter where society tried to push her down, Haley was determined to fight back. She waited until her husband left the room. He sneaked out of the closet when she called him. Haley knew she shouldn't do what she was, but she couldn't help it. Being trapped in this world, having to reach everyone's expectations, only weighed her down. Belonging to one of the richest families and being amongst the nobility never played well for Haley. Ever since she was a child, she found it frustrating that she had to wear dresses, eat with a spoon and fork, wear little heels, which stopped her from playing in the garden with all the other boys, or even outside, where all the little boys and girls played football. A view she could see from her large window in her bedroom. As she grew older, it didn't get easier. Haley was the oldest of a family of 4 girls. The crushing expectations that came along with being the first child, being part of the nobility, being a woman, was something she got tired of when she reached adulthood. When she was forced into a marriage with a man she did not love, that was when she decided to draw the line. She could not accept it anymore. That is how she ended up in the situation, where she was married, but also in a relationship with her childhood best friend. They met after a few years in a cafe and kept meeting for a while. It didn't take long for Lucas to confess his feelings for her. Ever since then, they have been secretly seeing each other. If Haley was to be very honest, she didn't know if she truly did love him. She knew that whenever she was with him, she felt like she had control over her life, like she could do anything. For so long, she felt like a puppet being controlled by the strings of the expectations of her family and society. But when she was with Lucas, it felt like every one of those strings were being cut, one by one. Every time she was with him, it felt like a weight was lifted off of her. She learned to appreciate the little things in life and every moment that they shared together. But she still knew that whatever they were doing was wrong, and someday they would be caught. Sooner or later, someone would hear about it or find out by some other means. And when that happened, what would happen? What would become of them or their love? Would everyone disown them for being in such a relationship? Would Lucas even stick around then? But despite all these questions and doubts, Haley trusted her heart and chose to stay with Lucas. It was the first decision she made for herself solely, without any external pressures. Tonight was like any other night. Haley's husband had gone to his room to sleep. Yes, they slept in separate rooms. And Lucas was with her in her room. He smiled at her warmly, his eyes twinkling. He was a sweet man. If Haley had to describe him, she'd probably say he's like honey, sweet, kind, and everything lovely. Initially, he was utterly shocked and guilty at the fact that Haley was seeing him, despite already being in a marriage relationship with another man. But after explaining the situation, her husband, Ben, equally unsatisfied with the marriage and only agreeing to it due to societal pressures, Lucas finally gave in. "How have you been, mon amour?" he asked. "All right," Haley replied quietly. Tired. Tired of the work, the expectations. He remained silent for a moment. Then he spoke. "Run away with me." Haley looked at him with eyes like saucers. What? Lucas took her hands in his large ones, bringing them close to his chest. "Haley, I love you with everything I've got. I want to be with you forever, always. We can't keep living like this, so come with me. We'll escape, run away from this world, from society, from these expectations." Haley looked at him, still shocked. She had faced so many difficult choices in her life, but this was by far the hardest one. She was willing to give up everything, her name, family, home, for Lucas? She nibbled her lips, not knowing what to say. She truly didn't know if her love for him was genuine. It was a huge decision. But looking at his loving eyes and his kind face, she couldn't say no. She just couldn't. Besides that, running away had always been an option she opted for, and now was her chance. In the end, she decided to take that leap of faith for love, freedom, and a chance at happiness. She said yes. And so they made plans to run away together. It was time for Haley to make her own decisions. Finally, it was her turn to write her own story. The next morning, Haley woke up early and packed all of her essentials into a small bag, some clothes, money, jewelry, and quietly sneaked out of the house with Lucas by her side. They didn't look back. They just ran as fast as their legs could carry them until they were far away from the town and society's expectations. Lucas handled the tickets, it was decided. They were to go to England by ship. Finally, it was time for them to board the ship. As they stepped on board and looked at each other one last time before departing, Haley knew she had made the right decision. She trusted her heart and chose love over what society expected of her. She smiled as Lucas intertwined his fingers with hers before they set off on their journey, a journey to a new life together full of unknown adventures and surprises. They took their seats in the ship side by side and held hands. Everything happened so quickly. It was difficult to believe what had just happened. Haley had escaped with her lover, Lucas, and they were not headed to England. Suddenly, she began to think of all the consequences of this move of hers, the backlash, the shaming and hurt she would cause her family. But before these thoughts could overpower Haley's mind, Lucas hugged her tightly and promised to take care of her no matter what. She smiled and nodded, feeling more content than ever before. She was finally free. The ship sailed away into the horizon as they watched in awe at all the beauty that surrounded them. They were going on an adventure together, a journey full of love and freedom, where anything could happen. Only that was what they thought. Haley and Lucas spent the rest of the ride speaking of the future, of all the possibilities, the opportunities. After all, they were two 20-year-olds who had just stepped into adulthood, who had no idea of the real world and what it was like. For the first time in a very long time, Haley felt genuine freedom. Suddenly, there was an announcement. She didn't hear it clearly because of how quickly everything was happening. Something about a leak, something about crashing, sinking, emergency. There were alarms sounding off, red all over, people rushing, pushing, grabbing. Chaos. Haley and Lucas looked at each other in shock, not knowing what to do. They were stuck where they were. They were teenagers only months ago, and now being thrown into this world, they didn't know what to do. Someone pushed Haley away, and then Lucas was lost, gone, out of sight. She felt her heart beat rapidly in her chest, tears welling in her eyes as the crowd continued to push her. She didn't know what to do. She was all alone. The rest of it was just a blur. She didn't know what happened because all she heard was another announcement, and she felt something hit her head, and only darkness clouded her vision. When she woke up, she was in a hospital bed, concerned faces all around her. She immediately noticed her sister's faces, and almost immediately her youngest sister threw her hands around Haley and sobbed into her shoulder. Soon, her other sisters joined in the group hug. Despite feeling the comfort of her family, she couldn't help the confusion that was clouding her mind. What happened? Didn't she try running away? What happened to the ship? Where was Lucas? Where was everyone? Where was she? The questions swirled in her head, but all she could do was stay there, be with her family, and pray that Lucas was safe. And as days passed by and the storm subsided, Haley's reality slowly started to sink in. She had made it back alive, but where did that leave Lucas? 5 years later, Haley survived. Lucas didn't. The ship had crashed and sunk, leaving many lives lost in its wake. The memory of the incident still haunted her, but she was slowly learning to manage it. She was standing in front of a grave now, Lucas's grave. She had come to visit this place every year since that fateful day 5 years ago, and each time, the memories flooded back like a tidal wave. But despite being filled with sadness, Haley mustered up all her courage and smiled at his grave, smiling for all the love they shared, for all their dreams, for all the memories they created together. After 5 long years of emotional healing, she was finally ready to find her own path forward without him by her side. Lucas had been her best friend for the longest time, and then her lover. Although she never figured out if she truly loved him or not, she definitely had an emotional attachment towards him. For the longest time, she ended up going for therapy, trying to get over his death. Haley never found out what happened to Lucas. He was gone forever. The only thing left of him was his memory and a single red rose which survived the entire accident unscathed and still lay at the bottom of the ocean, not too far away from where they were supposed to go, England. Though Haley felt broken inside, she knew that she needed to move on and make something of her life so that Lucas would be proud of her, if he was still with her. And now, she was ready to move on. She had an entire life ahead of her, and it was time to take back that freedom from the sea. Life was funny, she thought, its surprises, its way of a moment of happiness completely changing into a moment one would want to completely get rid of out of their memory. But at the same time, life was beautiful. With its ups and downs, it taught her how to stay strong and resilient, even in times of adversity. Haley wasn't alone anymore. She had found solace in her family, who supported her all throughout. After the incident, they became less pressurizing, less overbearing. Even her husband was more caring towards her and even loved her. It was a drastic change, but she got used to it. It's what she desired all her life either way, a family life where she felt comforted, safe. She knew that from here on out, no matter what happened, she would be all right. They'd always be there for her. And with that thought in mind, Haley smiled one last time at Lucas's grave before turning away, ready to move forward into a new chapter of her life with hope, courage, and strength.